had a slight crisis this morning, actually. I unpacked the suitcase and the slippers were missing. I'm staying in quite a nice hotel. It's up at the Cross, and I got out of the shower and looked at the carpet. And I didn't have my slippers with me. I was slightly concerned about that. Anyway, I knew this was going to happen. I knew there was going to be lots of lovely digital stuff in the morning. It was all very nice. I enjoyed it. It's rather nice of Marvin to play lots of our work from BBH New York on Chrome Fast. He sort of did a pre-creds. I'm now just branding the pre-creds. Anyway, all this lovely digital stuff, I'm going to go old school. I'm going to get medieval on your ass. I'm going to go back to the core of what I think probably pays the salaries of most people in this room, because everybody here, I'm sure, has a large mortgage and wants to drive a nice car. Probably these days it's an Audi. It used to be a BMW when I lived in Sydney, but I think people have shifted across now. So the core of what we do day in, day out. And this is a bit of a talk and a bit of a rant about that. The core, quite often with big, multi-brand FMCG clients with set processes. And this is a piece about how can we make our day-to-day work better on the big stuff, the stuff that consumes our time, that one of the earlier speakers' points today is wears teams down. How can we do it? So, welcome to the anti-wind tunnel marketing movement. You're probably wondering what the hell that was, but I'll kind of talk you through that in a couple of slides. I'll just do the flow. Hopefully I'll get this right. Does this work? Very simple. I'm going to start with the provocation. I'll explain the analogy. We'll look at a few examples. So I'm going to bore you rigid with about 5 minutes of not terrible, just average advertising. Then we'll look at some funny stuff. Then we're going to talk a little bit about why we've got to where we've got to. And then we're going to talk about solutions and just basically where we've got to, 10 possible solutions to make the core of our work lives better and to make the work itself better. So let's start with the provocation. Do you remember the time, it was probably early 80s, when all cars started looking the same? Even Holdens and Fords started to blend. And there was a reason for this, because they'd all been through the same wind tunnel. Essentially, they'd all been through the same design process. So cars started looking very similar. This is, of course, one of the central jokes in Top Gear, with Star in a reasonably priced car. Do you have that in the Australian version? No. This is Lionel and the treacherous and traitorous Stig. But over the years, they've had 3 reasonably priced cars, and you'll notice that they're very hard to tell apart. In fact, I'd say 99% of people wouldn't be able to tell what the brands were at all, because again, they've all been through the same design process. So the provocation here is simple, that we have done to our industry exactly the same as the wind tunnel did to design in the car industry. We have knocked the edges off it. We have a process that's too set, that gets us to the same results time and again. And that while we talk differentiation, and I think we genuinely believe it, we go to conferences and people talk about the big idea, and it's all about the idea, and by the way, it's the idea. And I think our clients believe it as well. We talk differentiation. And yet, as an industry, let's be honest with ourselves. 90% of the stuff, not the stuff we've been seeing this morning, 90% of the stuff that we burden the world with is actually very, very similar to each other. We talk differentiation, but we produce sameness. The same kind of aesthetics, even an angle on car ads that everybody takes. The same scenarios we keep churning out again and again. It's the lovely family. The same conventions. Who here works on shampoo? Come on, admit it. Soap powder. You know what I'm talking about. The same benefits. Online, we all have the same recipe tools for the same type of clients. We are churning out similarities. But why? Well, I'm going to bring forward 2 kind of suggestions as to why. Firstly is that we all follow the same process. One that starts with the hallowed consumer insight. They're great, those things, aren't they? And finishes with consumer testing and validation. We got a green in preview. All is good with the world. And secondly, the fact that we have probably forgotten one of the key questions in our industry. Is it different? I'll start with the first. There's kind of the law of unintended consequences going on here, I think. Globalization and essentially the professionalization of marketing and our industry. The old days of the long lunch seem to have gone. Maybe not here. Maybe I should move back here. I don't know. That's not a bad thing in and of itself. But it has led, essentially, to what I'd call the codification of best practice for our industry. And best practice itself, I think, is quite a dangerous phrase for an industry that's driving, apparently, towards divergent thinking and differentiation. We're not lawyers. And it's led to one model of creative development. And I'm sure many of you have felt the full power of this wind tunnel model. We start in consumer groups where we hunt around. The planners go and hunt for insights, and they come back bearing from the jungle these hallowed items, which are then fashioned into beautiful briefs, which then get turned into to work via a phase of strategic and creative development. We then test these in the entirely natural environment of focus groups. And then once one of the routes is good enough to actually make into an animatic, we then pump it through another very close to reality system called quantitative testing. And I'm sure many of us here feel somewhat trapped in this process. And it's becoming more and more universal. So we now inhabit a world in which most brands in most categories approach most problems. Sorry, can I hear my drifting in and out here a bit, aren't I? Most problems by asking the same people the same questions in the same way. Everybody even uses the same research companies to do this. We have a problem, and it shows. Let's talk briefly, before we have a look at some stuff, at the second reason why, which is kind of, have we forgotten to ask the question, is the stuff we make different? When I was training, I was taught that brand communication of any sort basically had three key elements, and you had to tick each box. It had to be true and credible to the brand, it had to be relevant to the consumer and therefore motivating, and it had to be different. The issue is we've got now is that one of those circles is the only one we actually bother with. How many brands that you work with have a real vision for what they're about, the true, credible passion for it? How many questions are asked anymore in reviews and from clients about, is this actually different enough from my competitors, or am I just adding to the general noise? We seem to have got a best practice focus which is all around one of the three elements, relevancy. Anyway, let's look at some examples. I must apologize here because I've got a big screen in front of me I can watch now. I can stop staring at the screen there. I'm very technically adept. Let's look at some examples. I apologize here. I don't wish to slag off Australian advertising at all. In fact, I don't think these are all Australian ads. They have all run in the last couple of years in Australia. And we'll look at three examples from each of these categories. I don't think I'll burden you with the shampoo ads at the end because I know you've sorted out your terrible dry and damaged air and split ends. It's all sorted now, that's fine. So we're going to look at some ads from each of these categories. Not because they're bad ads. A couple of them are very nicely produced and they're quite well written, some of them. But because so clearly they come from the same brief, which so clearly comes from the same research, that they are practically indistinguishable from each other. And they're big production numbers. So can we just play the first block of video? And we'll stop it after the, yeah, just keep playing. So we'll start with banking, a joy for us all.
Give and take doesn't necessarily come naturally. And for banking, it's no different. But at NAB, we've been making changes. Fees abolished, a sense of fairness. More give, less take.
What I don't like about banks.
That three-letter word, fee.
Fees I hate.
Monthly fees.
Fees just suck.
Left cost fees.
They bring me to swearing sometimes.
Charge too many fees.
They charge too much, way too much. Monthly fees, what do you get for it?
They are not upfront about their charges.
Yes, I find that annoying.
Fees. Don't like fees.
The fees and charges are a little bit high for me.
Probably the most annoying.
Fees to access my own money.
That's stupid.
I don't understand why they have to have a monthly fee.
That's just a ridiculous amount of rip-off.
With a Westpac Choice account, you pay in at least $2,000 a month, and we give you banking with no monthly service fee. At Westpac, we're lowering the cost of banking.
It feels great to get rid of things you don't want, especially monthly fees on your bank account. Get rid of these fees when you open a St George Complete Freedom transaction account. You get no monthly fees simply by depositing $2,000 a month, like your salary, and there's no minimum balance required. Join the thousands of St George customers who have already thrown out their fees. Visit a branch today. St George. Good with people, good with money.
Don't hold SUV from $33,990. Goes anywhere you can imagine.
What a day. I missed the bus in the morning, got in late. In my break, I got caught up with Darren and his mates, so lunch was cancelled. And that presentation I've been working on, what a disaster. To top it all off, I've had to bring all this extra work home with me, which is due tomorrow.
Being a kid can be tough, but with Kellogg's Cocoa Pops Cocoa Rocks, you can treat them with the chocolatey taste they love while giving them fibre and the goodness of 55% whole grain. Cocoa Pops Cocoa Rocks, now new and improved.
Morning, sweetheart.
Morning.
Milo cereal with whole grain and added fibre. Don't panic. Gives your kids nutritious energy. And when you put yourself in your kids' shoes, you can see why they need it.
Sorry, sir.
Milo cereal, the great taste they love with whole grain and added fibre.
Kellogg's Sultana brand. With a nourishing breakfast, kids can take on anything.
Okay, enough. I think I've put them through enough. Great, thank you. I won't labour the point anymore, you get it. But I thought the last ad was rather nice, actually, rather beautifully shot. The essential thing on all those and many other categories we work in, the briefs are the same, and then, of course, the work is the same. If you notice how the musical style is the same. It's an SUV, let's have an MOR rock track. Yeah. Anyway, so it's a problem, and it's actually right across the industry. I was listening to this morning, I thought, I've started gathering digital examples as well. So maybe next time I stand up and do this, I'll play a few of those in there. I thought it'd be quite nice. I mean, does anybody, people quite as old as me, do you remember a band called Pop Will Eat Itself? Anybody remember Pop Will Eat Itself? This notion of popular culture consumer. Yeah, somebody's raising their hand. They do. Well done. The kind of, I think advertising will ultimately eat itself as well. But I wanted to play three ads which I think are very funny. I don't know if they're great or not, but they're very funny. The first two are from America, Kotex, which does some great advertising in a shockingly hard category. Then Kia cars, Kia not known for its advertising. Then finally from the UK, Tesco. But what each of these ads does is actually plays with the notion that advertising cliches are so well known to consumers in particular categories, they can actually write ads making fun of the cliches. So let's play these three ads, the next block of video, please.
How do I feel about my period? We're like this. I love it. I want to hold really soft things, like my cat. It makes me feel really pure. Sometimes I just want to run on the beach. I like to twirl, maybe in slow motion. And I do it in my white spandex. And usually by the third day, I really just want to dance. The ads on TV are really helpful because they use up blue liquid, and I'm like, oh, that's what's supposed to happen.
You buy Kotex, and your line of tampons, pads, and liners.
When it comes to luxury SUV commercials, you expect certain things. You expect to see the SUV demonstrating its off-road capabilities in a place you'll probably never go. You'd expect a gratuitous cabin shot, followed by a string of cliched metaphors. For precision, horsepower, and state-of-the-art sound system. You might expect to see the SUV in a scene from a summer blockbuster, or parked next to a mansion with statues owned by a man who looks a lot like this. And while you might expect an over-the-top ending from a luxury SUV commercial, what you wouldn't expect is this. Introducing the Kia Borrego, a new kind of luxury SUV.
I want to live in a world where a new day means a new dawn.
Where I can communicate in new ways.
I want to live in a world where I can dream new dreams.
New dreams!
New chance to meet new friends.
And be given new hope.
I'd rather live in a world where I can just get a new phone every year with a simple 12-month contract. Oh, thanks very much.
Get a new phone every year from Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
So they're rather fun, aren't they? There was a brilliant one I wish I'd stuck on the reel, which is from a German newspaper making fun of the classic integrated campaign. Has everybody seen that? It's for the Zebra SUV. So instead of doing an ad, we set up and built our own zoo. People twittered about it, people put it on the blogs, people discussed it, and so on. It's wonderful. I don't know if I can get it to you somehow. Maybe we'll post it on the site, but you get the message. So possible reasons why. We dealt with this a little bit earlier, but let's just have a quick scoot through. I think the first point about the marketing wind tunnel is it all seems to make such wonderful, logical, good sense. I mean, after all, product USPs don't really exist anymore. There's very few of them. Anyway, if you've got one, you're lucky. So we're in the world of ESPs, or emotional selling propositions. So naturally, the focus, surely, becomes on consumer understanding. And after all, isn't marketing all about satisfying the wants, needs, and desires of consumers? So obviously, as I mentioned earlier, the holy grail becomes this thing called the breakthrough consumer insight, which the planner's meant to bring in the room in some kind of crucible type thing. It's kind of the eternal flame. But there's also a problem. Everyone's using the same best practice process with the same products, target audiences, models, and researchers. Have you noticed, by the way, how research companies seem to be able to have multiple clients in the same category, and yet any of us who work in advertising can't? I'm just getting old and bitter. I can't help this anymore. Anyway, the result is not surprising. It's what we saw earlier. And trying to differentiate in this process essentially feels like you're dancing on a pinhead. How many briefs feel perfectly, brilliantly thought through, and yet there's no space, there's no real difference, there's nowhere to go, which isn't really differentiation at all, because we're focusing only on one part of the equation, the relevant bit, the relevant circle. But does any of this matter, actually? Because the title is Commercial Creativity. Does it matter commercially? Well, I would argue yes, very much so, because what we're doing as an industry by following this very unified process is removing the cost efficiencies of real brand differentiation. That real brand differentiation is increasingly rare. And it all then becomes, again, resources. He or she with the biggest media budget or distribution network or sales team tends to win. Unless, of course, they've harnessed one of Josh's social memes on the back of one of those, but that's quite rare. So let's think about some solutions to this provocation, to this field our industry seems to, this problem our industry seems to have got itself into, with 10 early solutions. I thought I'd start, it's quite interesting on this. Think of the brands that you guys, or we all use, as reference points in presentations. One of the shocking things to me is the degree to which it's the same set of brands we all use. The standard ones for us in Asia are these, I'm sure, Nike, Google, Virgin. Uniqlo, big, amazing Japanese brand, does some great online stuff. But there's not a big basket of brands we go, they're all doing amazing work. Let me talk to you about this. The full horror of yet another Nike example. Why can't there be more examples and more brands? But anyway, those are the brands we pick, and they all share a common characteristic, which I think is very interesting, which is brand leadership, rather than just consumer followership. And I think there's a big difference there. I think our industry has got into the mode of following consumers. It's like, if a brand's meant to be a person, and you meet a person that goes, who am I? Who do you want me to be today? Then we have an issue, and it's beginning to show. So, our first solution in the way we work, we don't seem to be particularly divergent. We're not driving divergent thinking in our strategic or creative thinking. Should we have a commitment to insight from multiple sources? A very old BBH chart that we try and hammer into people, which is consumer insight is great. We commission loads of consumer research. But what about the brand? Some of the world's best work is built out of a brand point of view, or product, or category insight. And we'll see some examples of some of these later. Just fantastic work doesn't have to come from consumers. As, who was the old president of Sony when they brought out the Walkman? It's the classic quote, I can't ask consumers what they want. They don't know. It's my job to give them stuff that they then love, which is exactly what Steve Jobs now says about what they produce. Lead, don't follow. So let's force ourselves to look for insight from many sources. Insight-based thinking, but not solely consumer insight-based thinking. Second point, if this works. Should we focus especially on brand insight? It's the old Apple thing, fantastic, think different. A brand with a point of view on the world beyond just making money. Absolutely critical. That seems to be the thing that so many of the brands we work on, it's missing. I rather like this quote, actually, from a chap called Siddharth, who works for Unilever in Asia. What is the single most important part of the marketing mix that is essential to ensure a better chance of success in the marketplace? It is ownership of a point of view, which I thought was just rather simply and well put. Rather sadly, because it was Marketing Magazine in Asia, they then added this at the bottom. These are his personal views and may not represent those of his organization. Stocks may go up and down, you may not retain what you invested, etc. Anyway, but I thought a very neat way of putting it. There's a phrase that we've started to use, which is convention brands versus conviction brands. And you know when you've got a conviction brand because you have a sense of energy and momentum and focus. They're not asking people the directions, they're going, come along with us. I don't know if anybody's read the Gersma piece, Gersma and Labar, the brand bubble. It's actually a very interesting book in terms of the direction it suggests the industry should go. But this is just a quote from them about, I mean, it's interesting, their observation that actually the vast majority of big brands are going down in worth, and there's only a very small number of power brands that are now emerging around the world that have genuine momentum. But they said the few brands that are growing in worth are not just differentiated, but highly energized. They have energized differentiation. They are characterized by vision, innovation, and dynamism. And top of that list is they have a vision for what they're here to do. Solution 3. Should we make, is it different, the first question, not the last, in everything we do? I think we have to give old TBWA and Drew a bit of credit here because they built an entire agency philosophy out of this and were publishing this 20 years ago. But I'm not sure how many of us actually think enough about difference. We all sit through endless creative reviews, not creative, category reviews of all the work that's going on. How much of it is actually used? The only problem I find with the Disruption book is that I think it's chapter 13 covers Asia. It's the shortest chapter in the book. It's about 10 pages long. And the general conclusion is disruption is very hard in Asia. So thanks for that, Jean-Marie. That's very useful. Clearly his people there couldn't come up with many examples for him. I kind of guess that's highlighting a different element if we're going to focus on one. Solution 4, recognize that not all consumers are created equal. And this is a big one. I think this is something our industry has forgotten about as well. In any world, and we've seen lots of this today, there are leaders, people who set things in any category. There are followers and the rest. And yet the problem is followers are cheaper. And therefore, all the research companies will give you followers. And clients will get followers because that's the cost of a group. You get to the leaders, you will get a sense of purpose and mission and an understanding of where the market is going. Jim's my partner in crime in this rant. Solution 5, test in the market, not the test tube. We all know this doesn't bear a huge relationship to real life. Seen marketing test tubes, see preview test here. And I would also say that its cousin, the focus group, where 7 strangers gather to discuss your idea behind a glass window, is not particularly real either. Can't we stop testing this way and start testing in real life? There's been a lot of talk today about iterative learning, being in beta. Somebody out here has got to crack a way for mainstream communications to be tested in real life quickly. Gamers do it. A whole online community does it. We have to get our work online. I don't know if we make cheaper versions and post them or get people to vote, whatever. We can't carry on with these systems that stress rationality when all the evidence has been for years and is now growing massively is the massive irrationality of human beings and the degree to which they are driven by their emotions. Can we also bring back the regional test market? When I was training, it was always Yorkshire. or Tyne Teas, because they're poor and northern and they're a long way away. If you can sell it to them, that's good. And when I worked here, it was always Perth. Let's test market in WA, shall we? They're a long way away as well. They're not so poor, but we'll try it with them. Why don't we try that again? The whole concept of a test market, just trying interesting things, seems to have vanished. Solution 6. Let's look to the future, not the past. And I think there's this whole notion here of foresight rather than insight. Maybe that's what we should stop saying insight. We should go, what's the foresight on this account? What's the foresight on this brand? Where are things going? If you know where a category is going, it's like surfing. You can get on that wave, you can ride it, you can do well. I always think that innocent drinks in the UK, it's now spreading globally, obviously, because Coke bought them for vast amounts of money. Brilliant in that category. Then you could see where the category was going. It was going towards health drinks, not dull, healthy, flaxen foods and healthy stuff. It was going towards wonderful, colourful, lovely to drink, but healthy drinks. And it just pitched itself early, got in there. It's now a hugely valuable brand globally. The 7th solution, hurry up. I think we're all guilty. I think us agency folk are constantly going, but you're just not giving us enough time. There's no time, damn you. The problem with time is, and we all know this, is that then 1 million people get involved, don't they? And that dread phrase, the matrixed organization. God, I hate matrixed organizations, because that's just an excuse for nobody to make up their mind, because there's always a dotted line somewhere else to another group of people. So that if we sped the process up and go, right, yeah, you can have it in half the time and half the cost, I guarantee the difference would be higher and the creative would be higher in terms of quality. Also, I like this Colin Powell phrase. He calls it the 40-70 rule of battle. He says, don't take action if you only have enough information to give you less than 40% chance of being right, but do not wait until you have enough facts to be 100% sure. And too often we're trying to be 100% sure, because by then it's almost always too late. Once the information is in the 40 to 70 range, go with your gut. I think it's wonderfully powerful. Obviously, he's dealing with lives on a battlefield. We're just dealing with websites and ads, so not the same thing, but the point is true and is powerful. Solution 8, should we value inexperience as much as experience? Who here has worked in America? There are whole legions of highly specialist account people and planners and creatives in America. I do cars. Great, okay. If you do other things, I did other things when I was younger. So people get canalized. They do what they do. And lo and behold, it all starts to look the same. I always love this. I don't think this is apocryphal. This is a quote that I read. Account man at interview with potential new boss, New York, circa 1972. I know you've got experience in the baked goods and bread category, but do you have any in sliced bread? That's what we want to know. I think it kind of sums up some of the issues. Solution 9, put judgment. You remember judgment on client's part and our part? We're equally complicit in all of this, by the way. Put judgment back into the job spec. This is a real quote. This is from 8 years ago. It's one of our clients. I love this work. It's on brief, it's on brand, and really engaging. Let's move straight to research. It's the kind of leadership we're looking for. Lovely guy as well. But that was being decisive. And the final solution, I'm catching up. So I've done this short. You're going to catch up. This is great. The organizer will love me. This is slightly more kind of complex one. I think this is my retirement plan. This is when I move into consulting. And I've just called it restructure the corporation. I think there's a really big difference when you're working on a single brand company, when the brand is part of the DNA, and you walk into the office and you know, it could be crap DNA, by the way, but you know what they're about. And there's a feeling there, there's an essence. Versus the big multi-brand P&Gs, et cetera, have a lot of good people, very smart people. But the multi-brand companies are frequently, they operate on a category basis. And people will move on and off a brand every 2 years. So actually, they're not wedded to any particular brand. They're working for Unilever or P&G. They're not working for the brand. And 2 years isn't enough to get to know a brand, really be brilliant at leading that. People are moving off. The other thing that happens is that all the information in that category is shared with everybody. So, of course, if you're in the skincare category in Unilever, you know everything all your competitive brands know, and you're using the same information. I think it's really interesting the way that some of the recent, First Direct isn't recent, neither's Lynx, actually. First Direct's part of Midland Bank, now part of HSBC. But to set it up, that company realized it had to separate it away from Midland Bank, as was, into a completely different unit so it could build its own ethos. Because if it was part of the mother company, then it would never get off the ground. Lynx, part of Unilever. Unilever established what they called the Republic of Axe. You had to apply to work on Axe. Sorry, Axe is the other name for Lynx. We work on it in Asia. It's Lynx here. The Republic of Lynx. You had to apply to work on it. It was a separate unit. It had a completely different set of rules. It still does. And strangely, some of the most engaging work in all platforms from Unilever is on that brand, because they took it away and went, this thing's on a pedestal. Anyway, if you want to join in the argument on all this stuff, there's a number of postings. This is the only credentials bit, really. BBH Labs, go there. A lot of people put their points of view on stuff. It's a whole stream of different interesting bits and bobs. And if you type in wind tunnel, you will find quite a few interesting points from different clients and researchers, et cetera, on there. I thought I'd finish off with one more piece of video, which touches on many of the points that I've been talking to you about today. There's a pair of comedians called Mitchell and Webb, and they pose the question, is advertising sexist? I think they answer it yes. Can we play the last bit of video, please?
Ow! My stomach.
Do you suffer from gut agony?
And my head.
Tension head? Got that bloated feeling?
Ooh.
Inevitable wrinkles? The beginnings of lady moustache? And now you've pissed yourself again? Women, you're leaking, aging, hairy, overweight, and everything hurts. And your children's clothes are filthy. No wonder men long for other, less clammy women. For God's sake, sort yourself out.
Now I'm free to live my own life, my way.
Men, shave and get drunk. Because you're already brilliant.
Thank you very much, everybody. Cheers.